Welcome again to Great Tree Zen Temple in the second series of lectures given by Reverend Shohaku Okumura. This will be a 4-day series, so this is day 2. We have a few announcements to make before we get started. Zoom requires an update to their program, so that needs to be done before tomorrow at 6 a.m. actually. And the poems that Shohaku Okumura is talking about will be in the chat for you if you don't have them. And if you were scheduled, registered beforehand to get this, to come to this talk, the poems will be sent to you by email. And that brings us to our Dana statement. In Buddhism, when Zen practitioners share their understanding of the teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of Dana Paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice Dana are to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment or expectation when opportunity arises. Those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a Dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. And in the chat is also a link to, if you wish to give more to Shohaku, there is that link in the chat. And now we
I'm
would
not.
like.
I'm not seeing anything in the chats. In the chat. Did you get that in there? Did you get the attachment? Oh, okay. Brian just sent it. Did you get the other thing into the chat, Brian, with the poems in it?
Yes, the poems were sent to everyone who joined before Zazen, and if anyone does not have that, I can upload that as well again.
Well, I didn't get it.
Okay, I'll upload it again.
Okay. Okay,
Hey,
are
Joe.
we ready?
Yep.
An unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to, remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's teaching.
Shohaku Okumura, founder of and abbot of Sanshin Zen Community, was born in Osaka, Japan in 1948. In 1970, he was ordained by the late Kosho Uchiyama Roshi, one of the foremost Zen masters of the 20th century. He received Dharma transmission from his teacher in 1975 and shortly after became one of the founding members of Pioneer Valley Zendo in Massachusetts. He returned to Japan in 1981 and began translating the works of Dogen Zenji, Uchiyama Roshi, and other Soto masters from Japanese into English. In 1993, he moved back to the United States with his wife Yoko and their 2 children. He has previously served as teacher of the Kyoto Soto Zen Center in Japan and at the Minneapolis Zen Meditation Center in Minneapolis, and was director of the Soto Zen International Center in San Francisco for 13 years. Today, Okumura Roshi is recognized for his unique perspective on the life and teachings of Dogen Zenji, derived from his experiences as both practitioner and translator, and as a teacher in both Japanese and Western practice communities. He gives frequent lectures on the Shobo Genzo and other foundational texts. Transcriptions have appeared in Buddha Dharma, the Practitioner's Quarterly, Dharma Eye, and Buddhism Now. He also written or contributed to a number of books. The complete publication lists is available at Dogen Institute. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This morning I start the next poem. This is poem 11 in Kuchugen. Let me read this poem first in Japanese and then in English. 暮れなんとして猛と密接降る。死山柏なくまた松なし。論ずることやみね寸尺と陰気と。数山消失法に似たらんと思う。In English, deepening dusk in early winter. Dense snow keeps falling. On mountains in all directions, we see no cypress or pines. Stop discussing snow depth and the sinking gloom. I want this to be like Kaoshi Peak on Mount Song. Let me read this again. A deepening dusk in early winter, then snow keeps falling. On mountains in all directions, we see no cypress or pines. Stop discussing snow depth and the sinking gloom. I want this to be like Kaoshi Peak on Mount Song. As it is said in the first line, this poem was written in early winter. Early winter means in the lunar calendar, 10th to 12th month is winter. You know, first to third is spring, and fourth to sixth is summer, and seventh to ninth is fall, and from 10th to 12th is winter. Early spring, early winter means in the 10th month. So he wrote this poem in the 10th month. This is different from October in solar calendar. It's almost like midwinter in solar calendar. He wrote one waka poem, which was written in the 9th month. So we can see the difference between 9th month and 10th month. 9th month is still in the fall or autumn, and 10th month is winter. You know, this is a famous waka poem by Dogen, and this is one of my favorite waka poem. Before this waka poem, there is a little explanation. That is, poem on the occasion of over a foot of snow. Falling on the 25th day of the 9th month. So this was written in the 24th day of 9th month, end of the autumn. 25th day of the 9th month of the second year of the Kangen era, that was 1244. So Dogen was 44 years old. And the waka is as follows. First in Japanese, 長月のもみじの上に雪降りぬ、民人誰か歌を読まざらん。Again, 長月のもみじの上に雪降りぬ、民人誰か歌を読まざらん。Our English translation is, in the month of long night, it snowed on the bright leaves. Why don't those who see this compose a poem? In the month of long night, it snowed on the bright leaves. Why don't those who see this compose a poem? So this is the end of autumn. And the first line of this waka poem, it said, in the month of long night. The original word is nagatsuki. Nagatsuki, and this naga means to long, and tsuki is month. And this means the month, the night is getting longer and longer. That means ninth month. And it is said in one day, they had 1 foot of snow in the night. And the mountain was still covered with bright leaves. That was the time of the season to change the leaves, colors of the leaves. So there are many different bright colors, such as red or orange or yellow, or some of them are still green. So all different kinds of colors covered the mountain. And because they had snow, in one night, during one night, it became white. That was the scenery, Dogen described. So in the month of long night, it snowed on the bright leaves. Why don't those who see this compose a poem? So this is a beautiful poem and beautiful scenery. And 1244 was the next year. Dogen and his sangha moved from Kyoto to Echizen. And this kind of scenery cannot be seen in Kyoto. In Kyoto, I lived in Kyoto for many years, so I know the seasons of Kyoto. But in Kyoto, we had snow several times a year, but it never stayed. But in Echizen, that was not too far from Kyoto, but still the weather or climate is very different, as I said yesterday. So this scenery, the snow filled above the different colors of leaves is very unusual for people like Dogen who moved from Kyoto to Echizen. So he encouraged people to compose a poem. So basically, he was a poet. When he sees something beautiful or something unusual, he wants to explain or express in the form of poems. And this is not beauty for Dogen, but this express the very essential point of Dharma. That means, the color, the various different colors of the leaves on the mountains means multiplicity. Each thing has its own different color. And when it snows and covers all those leaves, then different colors are, are hidden in oneness. So this is the real expression of Sandokai, that is merging of difference and unity. The colors of the leaves are difference, and snow, the white color of the snow is unity or oneness. And these are at the same time, these are there. That is the expression of Dharma, of Sandokai. So he really appreciates, this scenery, and he wrote this poem. But when he wrote this Chinese poem, this was beginning of the winter. So already all the leaves fallen. And very dense snow keep falling. So it's very different as a scenery, different from the end of autumn and beginning of the winter. There's no such colorful, leaves anymore. Only the withered tree. Maybe there are some greens like pines or cypress. So this is a scenery of early winter. They have lot of snow, and everything is covered. Entire mountain is covered with snow, and there's no multiplicity or difference. Only one color. This entire world is has only one color. The white color of the snow, and the the sky is also white with snowy clouds. So entire world become one color. So only oneness is there. So, for Dogen and people in his Sangha who moved from Kyoto to Echizen, who are not familiar with this kind of weather, maybe they have some depression. There's no various colors, only one color, and it continued day after day for almost half a year. So second line is on mountains in all directions. All direction means 4 directions. So Eihei was surrounded by the mountains, and all the mountains are covered with snow. And their snow was very dense. Dense means it's big. I was surprised when I moved to Minneapolis. The snow in Minneapolis is different from snow in Japan. Japan, even though they had a lot of snow, but they are not so cold like Minneapolis. So when I moved to Minneapolis and saw the first snow, I was surprised. The snow is really fine and light, and we can almost sweep with brooms. But Japanese snow cannot, sweep. We cannot sweep the snow in Japan. It's very humid and heavy and dense. So even the nature or the forms of snow is different. So because entire mountain is covered with white snow, they cannot see the difference between cypress or pines. Cypress and pines are evergreen. So those trees had green leaves, but their green color is also hidden with white snow. So everything is white and nothing interesting. They didn't have TV or, internet. So that was their entire world. Nothing, no information from outside. So that was his or their entire world. So their entire world is white, cold, and not interesting, no entertainment. That was their life in the winter. But Dogen, probably Dogen is trying to encourage his Sangha and also himself too. That is in the third line. Stop discussing snow depth and the sinking gloom. So he asked his monks, don't discuss how much snow we had. It's getting, more and more. So there's no hope. They had colorful flowers or leaves. So so he said, don't, discuss about the depths of snow. We cannot find any hope in that. And sinking gloom is not a literal translation. The word Dogen use is inki. In is same in as yin and yang. Yang is yo. In Japanese, we call this yo. Our Chinese yang. Yo ki and in ki is opposite each other. Ki usually translated as energy. So yin energy and yang energy. And this yang also means the sun. So it's warm or even hot. So energy that makes this world warm. And yin energy is the energy that makes this world cold and dark. Yin and yin, another meaning of yin is a shadow. This yin and yang is very important concept in Chinese philosophy. And in Zen, yin and yang is often used. So what is Dogen is talking about is this yin energy, kind of a negative energy that makes ourselves and this world into cold and dark. So nothing interesting or nothing cheerful. That was the entire world for them in the winter. But final line, he said, I want this to be like Kaoshi Peak on Mount Song. Kaoshi Peak is Sho, Shitsu, Ho in Japanese. Ho is peak, and Shoshitsu is the name of this peak, where, in the mountain named Song, in Japanese we pronounce as Suzan. So the peak, Shoshitsu Ho, Shoshitsu Peak, in the mountain named Song or Su. And this is the place where Shaolin Temple or Shorinji, same Sho and Rinji, Shaolin Temple was located. And Shaolin Temple, as you know, is where Bodhidharma stayed. He came to China from India, from the south. But when he met with Emperor Wu in the south, Emperor Wu didn't understand him. So he crossed over the big river and went to the north and stayed in this mountain. And he sat there by himself for 9 years. I said in the beginning, he said by himself. But what Dogen meant is when Bodhidharma was sitting in this temple, Shaolin Temple, the story said he was sitting in a cave. I'm not sure it's true or not. I'm not sure if this entire story is true or not. But somehow, Bodhidharma was sitting in that temple. And the second ancestor who became Huike, Huike is a person who became the second ancestor of Chinese Zen, visit Bodhidharma. But Bodhidharma didn't notice, or at least didn't pay attention to this person. So it is said it was December 9th. The night of December 9th, or 9th day of 12th month. So it was very cold. And Huike had to stay outside for almost entire night. And Dogen described this story in Shobogenzo Gyoji. Gyoji is translated as a continuous practice. Literally, Gyo means practice, and Ji means to maintain. And he described the story in this fascicle of Shobogenzo. And let me read a little bit. So this is Dogen's description of the story. He said, at that time, it was a final month of a year, that is 12th month, and a very cold day. It is said that it was the night of the 9th day of the 12th month, even if it was not heavily snowing, the winter night in the deep mountain is not a place a human being can stand on the ground outside. It was a dreadful time of the year. Even a joint of bamboo would be broken with cold. Therefore, a great amount of snow covered the entire earth, both mountains and peaks. So the scenery was the same as where Dogen and his monks lived. And this person, Shuike, he sought the way in the snow. So he's seeking the Buddha way and tried to visit Bodhidharma. He sought the way in the snow. We cannot imagine how hard it was. Finally, he arrived the ancestors' room. He said room, so it's not in the cave, at least. It's in the building, according to Dogen's version. But he was not allowed to enter the room. It seemed that Bodhidharma did not pay attention to him. During the night, he did not sleep, sit, or rest. So Hyuike didn't sleep. He didn't sit, he didn't rest, but he was keep standing. He stood firmly without moving until dawn, until almost morning. Throughout the night, snow is falling as if it was no mercy. So snow was keep falling. Snow gradually piled up higher and burying him up to his waist. So he was buried with snow until his waist. His falling tears froze one by one. I don't think Dogen saw what happened to this person, but his description is so concrete. It seems he saw Hyuike's tears. It's like a movie. Anyway, and Dogen wrote what Hyuike thought. He thought to himself, in ancient times, when they sought after the way, they mean bodhisattvas, when bodhisattvas seek after the way, Buddha Dharma, Buddha way, one of them broke their bones to take out the marrow. Another drew his blood to save others from starvation. One spread his hair to cover the muddy water on the street. Another one threw himself off cliff to feed tiger. Those are all about from the tales from Jataka stories. You know, Shakyamuni Buddha in his past lives, he offered his entire body and mind to help or save other living beings. So there are so many such stories. And he said, even the ancient people with great capability and determination were like that. And who am I? So Hyuike asked to himself, who am I? That means he was seeking the same Buddha way as those bodhisattvas in the Jataka stories. And they did so hard things. Why if I am looking for seeking the same Buddha way with the same determination, how I cannot do that. That was what Huike thought, at least according to Dogen. Who am I? While thinking in this way, his aspiration became encouraged. And Dogen said, his descendants, means Huike's descendants, like Dogen and his disciples, and also include us. His descendants in later times should not forget this saying. We should not forget this saying. That is, even the ancient people with great capacity and determination were like that, went through many difficulties. And who am I? So this is what I think Dogen is saying in the final line of this poem. You know, that is, he I want this to be like Kaoshi Peak on Mount Song. That means he said, Dogen said, I want we, himself and his disciples, were like Huike. So we should ask ourselves the same thing. Who am I? If, you know, those bodhisattvas in Jataka stories are all Shakyamuni Buddha in his past lives. And if those bodhisattvas seeked away in such a manner, why we cannot do it? What is a kind of excuse to avoid such difficulties? So this is what Dogen encouraged, I think, himself and his monks. So this is about Bodhisattva vow. And right after that, you know, Huike had talked with Bodhidharma, and in order to show his determination, he cut off his one arm. That is a very famous story, but I don't think that is really happened. I hope. Anyway, so Dogen is thinking, you know, the condition of Eihei, where Dogen and his monks lived, is the same as Shaolin Temple, where you know, Huike had such a determination, and he asked his monks to have the same determination. You know, what Dogen was trying to do is the same as what I think Bodhidharma trying to do in that story. That means he came from India to China to transmit the Dharma, but probably he didn't speak Chinese. And you know, even Emperor Wu, who was a supporter of Buddhism, didn't understand what he was trying to transmit. So he was sitting by himself. And finally, one person visited him. You know, Dogen was the first person who transmitted Zen, at least Soto Zen, to Japan. And in the beginning, he established Koshoji near from Kyoto, the capital, but somehow he stayed there for 10 years. But somehow he had to leave Kyoto to the deep mountains. That is what where he and his Sangha lived. And the condition was the same as Shaolin Temple. or this mountain where Bodhidharma stayed and Hyuike visited. So, Dogen was trying to transmit the same Dharma as Bodhidharma. And he wished, at least one of his monks in his Sangha had the same determination like Hyuike. So in Shobogenzo Gyoji, after he introduced this story, Dogen made a comment. That is, reflecting quietly, we know that even if Bodhidharma had come from India thousands of times, not only one time, but thousands of times, without the continuous practice is Gyoji, without the continuous practice of Hyuike, there would not be a great number of students and practitioners today. So even Bodhidharma came from India and stayed in China. If Hyuike didn't visit Bodhidharma and didn't have such a determination and didn't transmit Bodhidharma's Dharma, then there's no tradition of Zen. But because of the Hyuike's determination, Zen spread in China, and many centuries later, Dogen could study the Dharma, and he could transmit the same Dharma to Japan. So I think Dogen really wish same thing happened. At least one of his monks was like a Hyuike. So this poem, I think, is about a vow. How can we take and transmit the vow generation after generation? And in a sense, we are means in America, we are the kind of same situation. Some Buddhist masters from Asia, and some of them are Japanese Soto Zen masters, and they, like Tejo-san's teacher Katagiri Roshi moved to Minneapolis, and he started Minnesota Zen Meditation Center, and he wanted to transmit Soto Zen. I think he learned or practiced together with his teacher, one of his teachers, Hashimoto Eko Roshi. So Katagiri Roshi practiced with Hashimoto Roshi at Eihei when he was a young monk. And so Hashimoto Roshi's style is Katagiri Roshi's style. And teachers at Zuyoji, like Narasaki Ikko and Dogen Roshi's style also came from Hashimoto Roshi. So, Katagiri Roshi wanted to transmit what he studied or learned from Hashimoto Roshi at Eihei to this country. I met Katagiri Roshi, I think in 1976. I think that was the time right after Minnesota Zen Meditation Center purchased the land of Hokyoji, and when I think Katagiri Roshi visited Shambhala Center in Boston, and coincidentally I was in Boston on that day visiting a friend of mine. And I knew Katagiri Roshi was coming and gave a public lecture. So I visited that place. And after his talk, during his talk, he talked about his plan about Hokkyoji. And after his talk, I personally visited Katagi Hiroshi in his room, and he talked more about his plan about Hokkyoji. I promised, in a sense, at that time, I promised if I was asked, I would help, develop the monastery, constructing monastery at the Hokkyoji, but he never asked me, and I had to return to Japan, so I didn't have chance to visit Hokkyoji at that time, while he was alive. But after, in 1993, I went to Minnesota to teach at Minnesota Zen Meditation Center. Many people talked about the beginning of Hokkyoji. They had a very difficult time to even to make the place where they could practice Zen. And Katagi Hiroshi's style was put emphasis on pretty much formality. So he wanted establish a place where he could practice formal style of Soto Zen, practice like Eihei or the Yoji. So it was really difficult, but I really admired his students at that time. They practiced in such a difficult conditions, and I heard next year they will have the 50th anniversary of Minnesota Zen Meditation Center, and today various disciples of Katagi Hiroshi have their own Sangha and continue to teach his Dharma. So I have been trying to do the same thing. I try to introduce what I learned from Uchiyama Roshi, and basically, Katagi Hiroshi's style and Uchiyama Roshi's style are very different. Uchiyama Roshi really focus on just sitting. So my wish was to transmit Uchiyama Roshi's style of practice. The essential point is so-called sesshin without toys. And people like this idea, practice without toys. But when they really sit 5-day session, it's really difficult to say I like it. I practiced 5-day session for 50 years, but I never thought it was easy. Never became easy. It's really difficult thing to sit 5-day, 14 period a day for at least 10 times a year for 50 years. It was not so easy, Bodhidharma's sitting for 9 years. It's not so difficult. I guess it's difficult to sit in the winter, but continue to sit 5-day session for 50 years is difficult, at least to me. Anyway, but so when I first moved to Bloomington, after establishing Sanshinji, I was not sure if Sanshinji can continue to exist. But next year we'll have 20th anniversary of Sanshinji. Somehow I never sat 5 sessions by myself. There are always some people sitting with me. That was why I could continue to sit 5-day session. It's not really possible to sit by myself, but because someone is come to sit with me, I could do that. So I really appreciate, American practitioners, bodhicitta, and practice this good for nothing Zazen. Anyway, so Bodhidharma and Huike and Dogen and his monks, and what is happening, I think it's still in the very early stage of Zen in America. So we have the same kind of difficulties. So in order to go through those difficulties, we had a determination like Huike's, who am I? Why I want to avoid this? I cannot avoid, so I just do it. Well, that is what I have to say about this poem. So I'd like to go to next poem, that is in Kuchugen, poem 12. 12. I hope you have that text and can read this poem. First, let me read in Japanese. 五葉家開いて六葉を重ぬ。晴天白日明なきに似たり。もし人我にいかなる色をか見ると問わば、これはこれ、愚鈍の老眼勢。Again. 五葉家開いて六葉を重ぬ。晴天白日明なきに似たり。もし人我にいかなる色、this can 色は四季。をか見ると問わば、これはこれ、愚鈍の老眼勢。In Japanese, I'm sorry, in English translation, in Dogen's extensive record is as follows. The 5-petal flower opens, a 6th snowflake petals added. Though daytime with blue sky, it's as if there were no light. If someone asked what color I see, these are Gautama's old eyes. Again, the 5-petal flower opens, a 6th snowflake petals added. Though daytime with blue sky, it's as if there were no light. If someone asked what color I see, these are Gautama's old eyes. 5-petal flower refers to plum blossom. Plum blossom is ume in Japanese. Ume or plum blossom is the first flower bloom even in the winter and early spring. So plum blossom is the first flower we see, at least in Dogen, see in the snow. And it blooms around that time of winter solstice, or at least on the occasion of Buddha's Enlightenment Day, that is 8th day of 12th month, December 8th in lunar calendar, I mean solar calendar. So at that time, at least ume or plum blossom is blooming. They see the plum blossoms. And yet the entire sky, I mean not only sky, entire world is covered with snow. So everything is white. Only, the white plum blossom. So this flower is also white. So everything is white. This is really one color, the world of one color. But snow and flower is different. And this ume has 5 petals. So 5 petal flower refers to ume. For example, in the verse transmission, Dharma transmission verse by Bodhidharma, is as follows. It said, this is not really, but this is Bodhidharma's verse about transmission of Dharma. Bodhidharma says, I originally came to this country to transmit the Dharma and save deluded beings. So that was Bodhidharma's vow, the reason why he came from India to China. When the single flower opens, when the single flower is single flower of plum blossom, single flower opens into 5 petals. So single flower opens the 5 petals. So this is plum blossom. Then the fruit of plum will ripen naturally of itself. A common understanding of this verse of Bodhidharma is, this one flower is the Dharma, Bodhidharma himself transmitted from India to China. And later from this one flower, 5 petals open, and commonly understood. And this means 5 schools of Zen were developed from one flower. That is the common understanding of this verse. But when, Dogen is an interesting person, he almost always says something against the common understanding. So Dogen interprets this verse by Bodhidharma in a different ways. He doesn't think this refers to, this one flower is what Bodhidharma brought from India, and 5 petals are 5 schools of Zen. But he, Dogen wrote one fascicle of Shobo Genzo, I think as I said yesterday, Baika, plum blossom. And in this fascicles, Dogen said, one flower and 5 blossoms are the same thing. So his interpretation is, this 5 petals is independent petals, each different petals. So this is same as difference. And one flower is this one flower. So one flower and 5 petals are exactly the same thing. And to talk about the same idea with Dogen, I always use the hand. This is one hand, but this is also 5 fingers. So, 5 fingers and 1 hand is the same thing. Beside 5 fingers, there's no 1 hand. And beside 1 hand, 5 fingers cannot exist. That means if we cut off 1 finger and separate from hand, this cannot be a finger anymore. Because this is a part of 1 flower or 1 hand, this can be called as a finger. And as a finger, each finger has different names and different shape and different function. But when 5 fingers work together, this function as 1 hand. So this is the analogy of merging difference and same and difference, sandokai, difference and oneness. So difference and oneness is really one thing. There's no fingers except 1 hand. So there is no petals except 1 flower. 1 flower, the collection of 5 petals is 1 flower. So for him, this is expressions of the reality of all beings. All independent individual things are connected in the Indra's net, and Indra's net is one thing. When Dogen discuss about Avalokiteshvara, there are 1,000 hands and eyes of Avalokiteshvara, like a Senju Kannon. Avalokiteshvara is entirety of 1,000 hands and eyes. And 1,000 hands of eyes of Avalokiteshvara is each and every individual beings. So that is how Dogen interpret how Kannon or Avalokiteshvara use those 1,000 hands and eyes. So these are all same thing. These are expression of true reality of all beings. That is, all independent things are interconnected each other and function as one thing. This 5 petals flower refer to plum blossom. And in this first line of this poem, he said, 6 petals added, 6. But I'm not sure this 6 petals is right translation or not. Originally, what Dogen wrote in this poem is Rokuyo. Rokuyo, that literally means 6 petals, same petals as 5 petals. And in Chinese poetry, the snow is called Rokuyo-ke, flower with 6 petals, because what they call the crystal of snow is hexagon. So in Chinese poetry, snow is called Rokuyo-ka, flower with 6 petals. So this first sentence means, there is a 5 petal flower with 5 petals, that is plum blossom, and added the flower with 6 petals, that is snow. So that means on the plum blossom in the snow, and more snow is falling. So plum blossom, and in the second sentence it said, though daytime with blue sky. So it was a fine day and the sky was blue, and entire mountain was white, and only plum blossoms are blooming. But probably suddenly the flowers start to fall, it start to snow. Then the white, blue sky disappeared, and even the sky became white. That is the scenery Dogen is described in the first 2 sentences. And he said, if someone asked, what color I see? So this entire world is white. No, plum blossom is white, and the entire world is white, covered with snow, and even the sky became white. So this one color. But Dogen asked to himself, if someone asked what color I see, then he said, my answer would be, these are Gautama's old eye. This Gautama's old eye came from, again, Dogen's teacher, Tendo Nyojo, or Rujin's poem. When Rujin gave a Dharma Hall discourse on the occasion of Buddha's Enlightenment Day, that is 8th of December, he recited his own, Rujin recited his own poem about Buddha's awakening. And Rujin's poem is, at that time, when Gautama lost his eyeball. Let me read the entire poem first. At that time, when Gautama lost his eyeball in the snow, there was only single branch of plum blossoms. Right now, thorns are growing everywhere. Rather, I laugh at the spring wind blowing lively. So in the first 2 lines of this poem, Rujin said, when Shakyamuni, Gautama referred to Shakyamuni, when Shakyamuni attained enlightenment, he lost his eyes. That is an interesting expression. He said when he attained enlightenment, he lost his eyes. I think that means, we have 6 sense organs, and the first one is eye, and the object of eye is color or shape. And usually, when we see something, as I said yesterday about the Yogacara teaching, we don't really see this object itself, but we only see the perception of this thing. And we have Ju, So, Gyo, Shiki, Rupa, and sensation, perception, formation, and consciousness. So these are subject and object. But what Rujin or Nyojo is saying is when Shakyamuni had awakening or attained enlightenment, this dichotomy between subject, object, and the world we create within our mind is dropped off. That is why, at least in Zen tradition, it is said when right after not right after, but he saw the morning stars, bright morning stars, and he attained awakening, it is said, Shakyamuni said, I, together with the great earth and sentient beings, simultaneously attain the way. So what Buddha is saying here means the great earth and the living beings, Ujo, all sentient beings, attained the awakening, or it said the way. In this case, this way means awakening. At the same time, that means the separation or dichotomy between subject and object dropped off. So he found, he and all beings within this entire world are all interconnected. So that's why he and entire beings and this entire universe, that is entire network of interdependent origination, attain the way. So this is what Rujin meant. Gautama, when he attained awakening, he lost his eyes. Means his eye was not one of the 6 sense organs that is separate from the object. But his awakening is, both self and others and this entire world are one thing, even though they are all independent. That is according to Nyojo, that was Buddha's awakening. So Buddha awakened to the reality that we and all beings are living together within interconnectedness. So in the snow, there was only single branch of plum blossoms. That is what Nyojo says about his Shakyamuni's awakening. Only one branch of plum blossom is blooming within the snow. So both are white. So there's no such separation between plum blossoms and entire world of snow. And Dogen take this idea from Rujin's poem. And what he says in the last line of this poem, is, this flower, this plum blossom he is seeing is Shakyamuni's eye. To me, this is a really interesting idea. The eye, when Shakyamuni lost his eyes, his eye went somewhere and appears here as a plum blossom in front of Dogen. So the plum blossom Dogen saw is Shakyamuni's eye, the eye he lost. I interpret in this way because what Dogen says in Shobogenzo Baika, or plum blossoms. He says, the plum blossom, this is from Shobogenzo Baika, and this is my translation. Said, the plum blossom in the snow is the emergence of an Udumbara flower. Udumbara flower is a metaphor of Buddha Dharma. It said this flower, Udumbara flower, blooms only once in 3,000 years. So it's very rare to see. And Buddha's emergence, Buddha's appearance, and our encountering with Buddha's teaching is as rare and precious as Udumbara flower. We can see only once in 3,000 years. And he said this plum blossom in front of him is emergence of an Udumbara flower. This is Udumbara flower. That is Buddha Dharma itself. And he continues, how often do we see our Buddha Tathagata's eyeball of the true Dharma, and yet we miss his blink and we fail to smile. This refers to the talk or story about Dharma transmission from Shakyamuni to Mahakashapa. On the Borcha Peak, one time, Shakyamuni Buddha sit on his seat, and at that time he didn't say anything, but the people in the assembly was waiting to listen to his talk, but he only picked up one stalk of flower. I don't know what flower it was that. Sometimes it says this is Udumbara flower, or sometimes it says this is a golden lotus. Anyway, he picked up a stalk of flower and smile and blink. Then no one in the assembly understood what this means, but only Mahakashapa smiles. And it is said on that moment, Shakyamuni Buddha said, I have Shobo Genzo, Niham Myoshin, and I transmit this to Mahakashapa. So this flower that is what Dogen is, this flower, Shakyamuni picked up and blink, and Mahakashapa smile is this plum blossom. And this is Buddha's eye he lost when he attained awakening. So, we see, plum blossoms every year, or not only plum blossoms, but all the flowers actually. All the flowers are the same thing. All flowers are the I, Buddha's I, the I, Buddha lost when he attained awakening. But Dogen said, how regrettable. We see, Buddha's eye, eyeball, but we failed to smile, so we couldn't appreciate it like Mahakashapa. So I missed the opportunity to have the same awakening as Shakyamuni did. That means we still have our personal I, and I think I like this or I hate that, or it's too cold, or plum blossom is not beautiful enough. I love cherry blossom. Cherry blossom is blooms on when real spring come. This is not yet real spring. So Japanese people likes both plum blossom and sakura or cherry blossoms, but we like cherry blossom better than plum blossoms. We didn't, it's still too cold to have a party when we have ume. Anyway, so this is Dogen's insight. That is the flower blooming in the snow at Eihei is the Buddha's eye. He lost when he awake and attained enlightenment. That means we and the flowers and all the snow are really one thing living together as a part of Indra's net. I think that is what this poem means. So Buddha's awakening is always blooming in a sense. Not only plum blossom in the snow, but now we have many sunflowers. It's gorgeous, it's so huge. I think largest plant in the green garden, and yet we don't think the sunflower is Buddha's eye or Shakyamuni's eyeball he lost when he attained awakening. Well, this is what I have to say. It's already 11:22. Tomorrow I am going to talk on one more poem about the snow and continue. So if you have any comment or question, please give me.
I need to, I apologize. Somehow we didn't get the attachments sent out. So we'll try to get that. We're going to try to get that out tonight. I'm really sorry. I got it in May and it kind of got off my radar.
So you don't have the poems at hand?
Well, they're going to be sent out by email, and we put them in the chat, but not everybody got them. So apologize to everybody.
About that.
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you don't know what I'm talking about.
It's all good. The other thing is we might have some problems tomorrow because Zoom is doing some kind of upgrade. We all have to upgrade our Zoom. So I just want to say to everybody, I'm on iPad and I can't figure out how to upgrade my Zoom. But these will all be on our YouTube channel. We're recording them. So That's the best we can do. I can't figure out how to upgrade a Zoom right now. So it'll happen for you, Shohaku. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Somebody will just do it for you. So anyway, does anybody have anything they want to bring up? Any questions, comments? You can raise your hand or just unmute yourself. We've got about 6 minutes, I think, so. But we can go over if necessary, I think, for a few minutes.
I see a hand from Lori, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. We were just wondering, is it possible that the 5 petals could be viewed as like the 5 senses and the 6th petal might be thinking?
I think you can interpret it that way. This is 5 skandhas are 5 petals, and 5 skandhas create another petals that is thinking. I think it's a possible interpretation, and we try to understand what they are. But the problem about our thinking is we make the separation. So if we understand the emptiness of 5 skandhas, that means emptiness of our thinking, then we are not caught up in our personal idea or clinging to those things. Then we have one with the things around us. I think that was what Buddha lost his eyeball means. Okay? Okay, anyone else?
Okay, I see a question from Mary. If you want to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. It seemed there were several references in the first poem and even in the second about the obscuring of color with the snow so that everything is one white. The sky and which is true when it snows, the sky is white and the ground is white. I'm wondering, could you say more about what that is when there's one color rather than a spectrum of colors as we normally have?
I don't understand the point of your question. Could you say it again, or someone explain?
Just there's one color as opposed to normal everyday life when we see more than one color. So what is it about there being one color rather than many colors?
One color refers to one dharma, as same as I said, one hand. When we see this as one hand, the uniqueness of each finger disappear. This function really as one hand. And yet when we see this as 5 fingers, we see the uniqueness or difference of each finger. So this is a 2 sides of one reality. So one color is not separate from our day-to-day activities. When we see from the ultimate reality, everything happening in this entire universe is one thing. There's no such separation. Or when we see the planet Earth from the universe, this is like a one ball. we don't see the separation among the countries or nations or each individual people. One earth is simply one earth. But within this one earth, there are many different things happening. Is this answer to your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
There's a question from Michael. You can go ahead.
Hi, it's sort of related to the last question. Yesterday, you mentioned the idea that you have thought and beyond thought, and that these two come from the source. I'm just wondering, is that the same way that we should understand the snow and the flowers? Is that like snow is oneness, but there is a deeper oneness that encompasses snow and flowers?
I think Dogen's point is we need to see both sides. We usually think, the things that is changing, the color of the mountains is impermanent, but the ultimate truth is not changing. There must be something that doesn't change, is more true than the phenomenal things that is always changing. But I think Dogen always put emphasis on see the reality or our own life within this lifetime, within this world, to see from both sides. Oneness is like, when I talk about this, there's no end. So, but, commonly in Zen teachings, something which doesn't change is phenomenal things, is our thinking. Therefore, we should become free from them, and we have to awake to this oneness or one thing or emptiness. But Dogen's teaching is different. He said we should see both sides. To see oneness or absolute truth or ultimate reality is not necessarily awakening. But our awakening is oneness between diversity and oneness, or relative and absolute. If we think relative things is delusive or illusion, we have to awaken to oneness or absolute reality. That is a kind of a common understanding in Mahayana teachings. But Dogen always, not only Dogen, but some of Mahayana teachings say this is still duality. Duality between relative and absolute. So we have to be, the first sutra mentioned about this point is Vimalakirti Sutra. And there is one chapter called Entering the Dharma Gate of Non-Duality. Many bodhisattvas said this and that is duality. So we have to go beyond this separation. That is entering non-duality. But finally, Manjushri says, whatever what you, all of you said is correct, but still by saying so, you create another duality. That is duality between relative and absolute. So we have to, in order to go beyond this duality, between relative and absolute. We have to shut our mouth, keep silent, say nothing. And that is what Manjushri said, using his mouth. And Manjushri asked Vimalakirti, what is your opinion? And Vimalakirti kept silence. And it said that is a complete expression of non-duality. But still Dogen doesn't agree with that conclusion. Dogen always said, you have to say something. Same as Katagi Roshi. We need to return to silence. Silence is non-duality. But you have to say something from non-duality, from silence. So Dogen is kind of interesting person. Well, is this answer to your question?
That clarifies perfectly. Thank you, Okumura Roshi.
Okay, thank you.
I think maybe we should close. I'm sure you're worn out, Shohaku.
Okay. Thank you for
Thank
your
you so
compassion.
much. We will give back the merit. If someone can respond, this is call and response, but only one person, please. May the merit of this practice
May the merit of this practice
benefit all beings
benefit all beings
and bring peace.
and bring peace.
Thank you. I think everyone should have these poems in their email now. Some people are already saying they're there. But if you don't, I put an email in the chat that you can write to me and I'll send it to you. Thank you. We'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you, Shohaku.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
The session is the same time tomorrow, whoever asked that question.